Should the Spurs be really active here in trying to add De'Aaron Fox to their roster? I know it depends on what goes out. You would assume the Kings are like, okay, you're going to have Fox. We'll take Castle, your high draft pick. I assume the Spurs are going to say, no, we're not doing that. Are you interested in a Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson and Zach Collins' contract and picks? Because they have a lot of other teams' picks. But then it's weird, like, here's the picks, but maybe the Kings want to still be competitive. So what do you think, Tass, of the Spurs side of it? Should they be looking, do you like the pairing idea of Fox with Wembanyama, or are there issues there not being a sort of a shooter and so on?
Well, De'Aaron Fox is a damn good player. I think he can shoot. Yeah, he's not a traditional lights-out shooter, but he can shoot. Yeah, what it comes down to, if it's Stephon Castle, I guess if the Spurs are negotiating, they say, no, we want to keep him. But if it comes down to that's the only thing that will the Kings will do it for, I think it may happen. But I would love to see him with Wemby. It would be an incredible matchup. Yeah.
I don't think that Fox would be the number one guy I pick to put next to Wembanyama from like a young player perspective, because he's not a good shooter. He's a 33% career shooter. He's had a couple of good seasons, but he likes to do it with the ball in his hands as well, rather than a catch and shoot guy. And honestly, I want Victor to have the ball more often than I want their point guard to have the ball. But it's so interesting. First of all, I think it's pretty crazy that this guy's in his second year and he's already getting all-stars to want to leave teams, leave paydays to come and play with him. Number two, win now moves, usually a bad idea in the NBA. That's how the Cavs lost LeBron the first time around. They thought they were ready to win because LeBron was one of the best players in the league at 21. They traded all their picks. They brought in these vets that they thought would help. Eventually, they had nothing left. He went to Miami. Everybody knows that story. However, I wonder if Wemby is like getting a great quarterback in the NFL at the top of the draft. Jaden Daniels, for instance. This is the cheapest Wemby is going to be for the next 15 years. So maybe you try and bring in talent like Fox. I wouldn't trade Castle. Vassell, maybe, but clearly the Spurs are going to want to do it for... I don't think Harrison Barnes can be traded, but like Keldon Johnson can be in a trade. They're going to want to send role players back. The Kings should not want that. So I wouldn't be surprised if this stretches into the summer, because the Kings don't have to trade Fox at this point. I like the idea of him on the Spurs, but I would rather trade Spurs picks than they've got 3 Hawks picks coming. They've got the Hawks unprotected pick this year, a swap the season after that, and an unprotected pick after that. They should hang on to those picks because those are going to be juicy. But you can trade the Spurs can trade their own picks. They're just going to be in the 20s.
Yeah, because you're banking on Wembanyama obviously being the best player here in the NBA in a couple of years. Yeah, they also have, ironically, I guess, the Spurs control swap rights on Sacramento's 2031 first-rounder, thanks to the DeRozan deal in the offseason. So if any sort of trade package is being talked about, I think it starts with that, right? If you're saying, hey, can we get that back? You start with that, and then the players, you go from there. Yeah, hey, we want Castle. Well, we don't want to give you Castle because we're terrified, and I've seen a lot of this, like, the idea like Castle turns into like the SGA type piece where he moves in that Clippers Thunder deal and suddenly this guy blossoms into like a superstar player. I mean, who knows, right? Castle's going to be a good player. He appears to be, but will he be to that level? You never know, but you want to hold on to him. So I'm doing more Vassell. Yeah, Keldon Johnson for sure. Jeremy Sohan, that one's in, I'd be intrigued if I'm the Kings. I know some Spurs fans love him. I think he has his limitations, of course, but he is an energetic defensive guy, and maybe you just want that good energy around Wembanyama. But man, you're right about guys like you're going to see the start lining up to get to play with Wemby, and you should if you want a legit shot at championships. Pluralize that maybe, or at least the window with him as the star guy.
Yeah, the Spurs tend to not trade somebody at the deadline. They slow it down, baby. And so it's unlikely we'll see the Spurs make it happen right here, right now. But it does make sense from the Kings front office perspective to say, a year and a half left. This is the time that they'll get the most for him. But it could definitely go to the offseason when it sure feels
if it's a true blow it up, like TK was saying the Kings maybe should lean into, then you're good. Then you could get a really good package back because there's a lot of picks involved here. But it's like they may still want to be, hey, we were bad for 20 years. Like we want to still stay somewhat relevant in play-in races, in playoff races. We want talent, and be it young talent at that, to grow with our team.
Yeah, so the question is some of those other teams that don't have a star player could be looking. The Grizzlies come to mind. The Rockets obviously are in there, but the Spurs one feels the juiciest. That's for sure.
Because he wants to be there. I think his wife's from San Antonio and stuff like that too. So Fox wants to go there. If you believe the reports.
He's from Houston, right?
Yeah, yes, but I think his wife's from there. Are there any other teams that should be like kick the tires on? Hey, we'll take De'Aaron Fox off your hands for 18 months. Here, what do you think about this deal?
Houston absolutely should kick the tires on it. They've said they're not making any trades. I suggested a Zach LaVine trade for them, and Houston Rockets fans got very upset. They said, no way. But Fox, come on, 27 years old. The guy would be money to have on this team. He's a clutch player, and that's something that they've been struggling with the entire year. I don't mind him on the Magic, though the shooting might become an issue there. Don't mind him on the Heat. He'd be good for that team as well if they're looking to upgrade their talent. People like staying in Miami.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Kings should get good offers. I think Sham said dozens of teams were calling on De'Aaron Fox immediately because of his contract situation and his age. So that's probably why the clutch team is not saying that he wants to go to the Spurs, because there's going to be a bidding war. If he says he wants to go to the Spurs, they're going to have to trade Castle. Right now, surely the Spurs don't want to trade Castle, but why would the Kings do it otherwise if he's not coming back? So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Fox ends up on a team that's not the Spurs and then eventually just signs there in 2026 anyways.